Hello, my name's Andrew Johnston. I'm president of Energy Thought Summit. I am here today with two great speakers from up north in Canada talking about the exciting innovation that is happening at PowerStream and with their partner Opus One Solution. We're here live at Distributech at the Nerve Center for Siemens, and I'm here with John McClean, VP of Operations at PowerStream, and Josh Wong, CEO and president of Opus One Solutions. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Thank you.
So, tell us a little bit about PowerStream first, John, and then Josh, please tell me a little bit about Opus One Solutions.
Okay, so PowerStream is a distribution utility located immediately north of Toronto, serving much of central Ontario. 375,000 customers, residential, commercial, industrial. Not necessarily a continuous service area, but fairly dense in our southern area. PowerStream is born out of a number of mergers over the last 10 years. Originally coming from about 11 utilities, now as one. And you mentioned in Ontario, we're subject to the green energy and economic policy. So that's been a real driving force for some of the changes that we've seen in our distribution system, and brought together partnerships such as that we have with Opus One and Joshua Wong. It's really been an enabler, government policy has really been an enabler to do some really interesting things on our distribution network. We've had to enable devices that we wouldn't have seen 10 years ago. Volt-VAR optimization, project we're doing with Opus One and with the support of some of the Recocom products. Other things such as microgrid, of course smart meter and AMI is a big role in that. We're getting down right into home energy storage as well.
And we're looking at Ontario all of a sudden as one of the most right places for energy innovation in North America. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, absolutely. Again, that's driven by government policy.
Canada, really. Yeah. And it's rare to hear people say, "Hey, it's that policy-driven experience." That's really exciting.
I will admit there's a bit of a latency between the regulator and what the government policy is.
Sure.
We've still got to maintain the regular metrics that the customer expects, a high reliability at the service delivery entrance.
Yeah.
So you've got a bit of a challenge in operating your system at a very high level of performance while enabling distributed generation, distributed energy resources, other products that we put on the line, such as volt-VAR optimization that complements and improves the process. But really now allowing the enablement of all these other devices. Solar, we're becoming very solar rich.
Yep.
The introduction of feed-in tariff programs by the government, micro feed-in tariffs. A number of activities have gone on. Conservation First framework is a big driver of this.
So let me ask you, Josh, what was it that drew you to finding this collaboration with PowerStream and sort of seeing how you can help? I know we've all been talking a lot about demand response and distributed energy resources at Distributech this year, but a lot of this goes into the technology that you provide.
Absolutely. And Opus One Solutions, we are an advanced energy company, and we focus on software intelligence to connect the energy internets. So we see a world where energy can come from anywhere and connect it to everywhere. And most of all, we run a microgrid laboratory in PowerStream's territory and actually service PowerStream's grid using the active and reactive power that's available from our microgrid with our own solar storage, electric vehicle charging, and load control. So working with PowerStream, we identified a high priority area with significant load and a growing penetration of renewable generation. But there are capacitor banks in there that are trying to correct voltage profile as well as minimize losses. Now the key challenge then is volt-VAR optimization has been a decades-old technology, but with two-way power flow, how are we going to enable the most optimal set points to dispatch the capacitor bank so that when we actually open and close the capacitor, we are not increasing losses or damaging voltage profile even under two-way power flow. So about 2 years ago, we started on a collaborative project what we believe is the state-of-the-art model-based technology using the three-phase AC unbalanced model of the system to state estimates the two-way power flow that's happening in the grid, and using that, what we call the the model of the grid, to make decisions in real time to actually advise on how the capacitor bank can be optimally dispatched under two-way power flow.
So capacitor banks have been around for years,
Yes.
but tell us about, this isn't the same application and it really isn't the same key performance indicators as a result. So tell us about the real KPIs and achieving performance goals in this new kind of setting. How does Opus One help PowerStream achieve that? And also, honestly, what are some of the real cost savings that emerge from something like this?
Absolutely. I think right now the historical technologies around capacitor banks is being challenged by the new paradigm around two-way power flow.
Yes.
So intelligence is the key to enable the achievement of those KPIs, and those KPIs will typically include reliability, resiliency, safety, but also the true objectives of overall optimization, which is voltage profile, loss minimization, under now the premise of DER, distributed energy resource penetration, and two-way power flow. So
it's internalizing the true value of that DER as an asset, but also as a reliability and resilience element.
And that's a great point, because the dispatch of capacitor banks is only stage one. The next stage is, can we actually utilize the distributed energy resources themselves with their smart inverters and volts and VAR capabilities to actually build a full-on integrated grid where not only traditional utility energy resources for CapEx is important, but also customer-owned asset and utility-owned energy resources can also contribute towards the reliability and power quality of the grid.
So let me ask John some really sort of more technical questions. So, how do you see the rugged comm technology in some of this solution, and how can that ultimately serve the customer of PowerStream, but how does that help you in your day-to-day job and your team?
Sure, great question, Drew. So what the rugged comm devices allow us to do is to couple the devices in the field to our SCADA system, and ultimately support the efficient and reliable operation of our distribution network. And historically, SCADA systems, operational networks have been kind of self-contained, air-gapped to the corporate side, air-gapped to everything else.
Yes.
But with the Siemens rugged comm devices now, we're able to couple external links, such as Joshua's Opus One's software to our system, allow for some two-way information flow that is secure and functions and performs reliably. So it's a key point. It's a changing, as you mentioned, a paradigm shift in the way we're conducting business on our system.
How has this helped with reaching your own goals of a utility that's more robust and resilient? Where does a PowerStream see this 10 years from now? So you mentioned this was phase one, really, right? So why don't you tell us about phase two? What is phase two?
Yeah,
if you had a crystal ball, what does that begin to look like?
I think the theme of this conference here, Distributech, is a lot about what we're talking here.
It's true.
It's enabling grid edge devices to get onto the distribution net, two-way power flow, efficiency devices. And in order to do that, we have to have situational awareness right from the traditional substation to the service delivery point.
The human is the most important component on the grid there.
Is the what?
Is the most important component on the grid in situational awareness. Is that distributed logic, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And
it's not, I guess what I'm saying is it's not foolproofing the grid anymore. We used to engineer it to be, even a dumb person could do it. But now we're saying, what if a smart person was really asked to manage it and optimize it? And that's really, it seems like, what you guys are trying to develop here through collaboration, though. And that's an interesting pull-up, that collaboration really let this emerge, right?
Absolutely. We seek out leading edge vendors and suppliers, and they also seek us out. And we look for opportunities to do joint projects. And we're not doing joint pilot projects just to say we've done a pilot. We look for actual production opportunities that will drive efficiency, reliability, and performance. And going forward, we'll continue to do that.
So, Josh, going back to you real quick. So how does Grid OS leverage reliability and rugged hardware of the Siemens WiMAX and RX 150, 1508 platforms?
The great question.
That's a mouthful, by the way. So why don't you break some of that down?
I can repeat that too.
Yeah.
We can do all the acronyms in the world,
Yeah,
especially in this conference.
Especially with standards, right?
Absolutely. So the collaboration with Siemens Ruggedcom has started about 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
And basically we were seeking a robust, ruggedized, reliable communications backbone
Yes.
Because we believe in decentralization of two key things. One is decentralization of energy, which is where we see it with distributed energy resources. But second is also decentralization of intelligence and how we do distributed computing across the grid. So firstly, the collaboration with Rugicom has been built upon the premise that Rugicom has established a most reliable communications backbone to connect devices, the Internet of Things or Internet of Devices on the grid. But secondly is, can we, since we are in such a challenging, complex power environment, can we build on top of this communications backbone to form an intelligence backbone running distributed computing?
A network of networks.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can run a network of networks, grid of grids, computing, grid of grids as well.
Nice.
So this is the potential, and this was the proposition that led us to start up that collaboration with Siemens Rugicom a few years ago. And as a result, the APE, or the Application Processing Engine, was born on the RX 1500 series of Rugicom products, where I can have a single board computer, Linux-based, and I can have third-party, let's say, Opus One's GridOS applications to do powerful real-time analytics, piggybacking on the real-time communications backbone. And we have identified critical essential areas which we can insert those intelligence all along the grid, and we chose with PowerStream will be volver optimization, and as well as microgrid opportunities, DER management, or other forms of innovative complex power flow for the smart grid.
So, John, that brings me to, I guess, a question about collaboration, but more so about, we hear so much, especially this year at Distributech, and Siemens is a great example of this, is that you have a lot of companies that are technology companies that have become that trusted advisor, but in some ways they're needing to learn as much from you. So, for my last question, John, what do you think Siemens learned from PowerStream in this process?
Well, I think it's an ongoing process, actually.
Yeah.
We're constantly looking to each other for solutions and answers to the problems that crop up every day as we become more of an enabler of systems and devices and DG attaching to our system.
Yes.
So there's not one single answer to that. I think it's an evolving learning process that there's a need and you need a solution. And we look to each other for both the need and the solution in many cases.
Josh, anything that you think Siemens learned from Opus One in this process?
I think it's a bilateral relationship. We are learning just as much from Siemens as Siemens from us. I think what we are learning the most from Siemens is the requirement for communications, interoperability, ruggedization. And with Siemens from us is likely to decentralize on what's going to come. A bit of a crystal ball into letting us venture out into a bit of the unknowns and the emerging trends and technologies that's available, and bringing that to Siemens to scale and to harden as well.
Is discovery scary or is it exciting?
That's why we are born.
I love it. I love it. This is actually going to be my last question now that we just talked about this.
You're actually challenging the former utility model there.
Explain.
Yeah, well, 100 years there was really no change in utilities. We received our power from the transmission system, centralized generation, got to the utility and sends it out in the wires. That was it. We'd read the meters once a month. Now, we've got introduced AMI smart meters. We've introduced online monitoring of our substation assets. And we monitor and manage that process all the way through the delivery point. And we adjust it as necessary, which is one of the reasons we've worked with Opus One and Siemens Rugicom in this volt-var optimization project.
What I love about that is it just perfectly ties in, I think, really one of the main themes of Distributech, and correct me if I'm wrong, but really it's that new ideas need friends.
Absolutely.
And that it's not going to be one technology solution provider and one utility solving things for everyone.
Absolutely.
It's going to take a group, and it's going to take good faith, and not just technical interoperability, but inter-organizational and interpersonal. And this is what I like about this story for me, and sorry, this is personal, but PowerStream, this is a generational and cultural bridge that you guys are doing. You have been in this industry for decades. You are young in tech, and you are building this bridge. And I think a lot of people are finding very exciting. A lot of people are finding challenges in that. Are there any challenges that you want to advise people as you're sort of building that generational bridge? What are some of the things to look for?
Yeah, so we're seen as early adopters. We're early adopters of technology, of processes, the early adoption of that metamorphosis of changing our network to facilitate two-way energy flow, facilitating allowing devices to be connected to our network. Never happened. Even 15 years ago, never happened. And
Wow.
all of a sudden now there's new expectations driven by policy, but also there's technological and performance benefits to be seen by taking this approach. So having strategic partnerships with good partners is a facilitator of this, and it goes a long way to meeting the objectives of policy, but also our shareholders and our customers.
Josh, anything you want to share that you maybe sort of learned from this collaboration and building this bridge with PowerStream?
Absolutely.
Maybe for other utilities you'd want
Yeah.
to work with in the future?
No, absolutely. I think well, it's a global problem, so
It
we need a
is.
global solution. So we need to work together for global solutions. But the other thing is as well, that's smart grid by definition is really a convergence between
Yes.
information technology, communication technology, power, and now with the onset of electric vehicles, transportation technology into one. So I think especially with the utilities, what we learned is we are bringing many industries into the power space, and we need to find the ideal intersection of how we can become increasingly convergent towards each other and finding the right balance between these historically siloed industries and practices and sectors. But that's what makes it exciting, because it's no longer siloed, it's completely integrated. So we need not just an integration of a utility with vendor or technology provider, but across industries as well. So that's very, very exciting for us.
Right there, Drew. Exciting times.
Exciting
It's been
times.
a fantastic ride the last 5-10 years.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, let me say one takeaway from this conversation. You don't need to be in the Boston-Washington corridor. You don't need to be in San Francisco. The hills and valleys of North America, these things are happening. They're real. And it doesn't mean that innovation only happens on the coast. It happens right there in the center of Ontario. Guys, thank you so much. What an illuminating conversation.